Welcome to Mount Rushmore!
Food prepared in here. Also, this is a smaller version of what we call wata, or a boat. This is a buffalo boat that we would use going across the rivers as well. So you could see, and this is a tail. You can imagine what that's used for, right? But it was also used we used it as a dance regalia for when we were doing a buffalo dance. It also had the tail like that, and we'd have a mask where an individual would pretend there would be the buffalo that gets killed, and so that would predict on a good hunt. Then you see, this is just examples of every part of the buffalo that we used. And here's a spoon from the horns.
Oh.
And these are scrapers.
Scrapers for?
To scrape the hide. So if you see right here, this is very soft. In fact, this is why the traders came to us in the first place, was because of our hides. This is very soft hide. This is brain tanned hide. So they use the brain of the animal because there's enzymes in their brain that helps seal the leather but keeps it in a soft material, and also keeps the fur very soft. But then if you brain tan, or if you're gonna tan it with a scraper, then that's how you get the raw hide. This is buffalo hide here that's been scraped, and you can see it's harder and it's not as soft. And so that's what the scraper would be for. And these right here, these are sewing awls.
Sewing?
Yep, sewing awls, yep.
So cool.
This was actually the weapon that was used for Custer's demise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a sewing awl, because it was a Cheyenne woman who had the final say and the final action. Sequoia crossway imacha pelo, machate washte na pe uchizapelo. Itancha wanti o kichize mitun kashla. Na ha itancha makpia luza ha mitun kashla. Ma ate, ma zuya, ma wa uspekia, ma Lakota, ma Nakota, ma Dakota. Lehi haneke, lako, nako, dako, wichokan woklakte. My name is Sequoia Crossway, and I just referred to you guys as my relatives. I said to you guys, welcome. We are in Haisapa, also where Mount Rushmore is. In Lakota, we've referred to the Black Hills as Haisapa, or other translations would be the heart of Mother Earth. If you were to look at the Black Hills from a satellite point of view, it's shaped exactly like a human heart. And before there was man-made lakes, the streams and the rivers that went through the Black Hills were exactly like the arteries of our human heart. And so if something happens to our heart inside of our body, what happens to us? We die. So now you know how the Plains people revere this area that we are walking in this morning, right? So, and it's kind of ironic that the Plains people knew of the Black Hills to be the heart of Mother Earth before there was satellites. The other thing that I said to you is, my name is Sequoia Crosswhite. I'm an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Lakota tribe. I'm also a descendant of two chiefs, Chief Warrigal and Chief Swiftcloud. Yes, I'm one of the lightest ones of my family, so I encourage any kind of questions about my background. I am a real Indian. You can pinch my hand. I'm speaking to you now. So we might have unconscious bias as we think about things and as we watch different programming and stuff like that as we were growing up. But here to let you know that I also said that I'm a teacher. I teach Lakota language. I teach Lakota culture. One of the chiefs I'm a descendant. If you're ever traveling through Sioux City, Iowa, there's a statue of a chief holding a pipe across the Missouri River in the Big Sioux River. That is my great-great-grandfather, Chief Warrigal. And my great-grandmother is buried there as well. Her name is Makpia Ka'idewi, which means blazing cloud, because she was very, very good to look at. And the last thing that I said to you guys is that I come to you with a warm heart and a warm handshake. And to know when we learn things about people's culture and we learn about languages, that we get to learn about what's going on in the minds and the hearts of the people. First of all, for many years in the history books, they call our people Sioux. Even in some of our tribal references, they say the word Sioux. Sioux is a derogatory term that means snakes and enemies. Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota, as you've seen on the sign, that means friends and allies. See the big difference of those two terminologies and those titles? Okay, so the first song I'd like to share with you was composed after World War I. And to acknowledge any veterans that might be with us this morning, and thank you for your service. Also to acknowledge that out of all of our wonderful diversity in America, Native Americans have served the most in the United States military. And even though there has been a movie made about the Navajo code talkers, the truth be told is that every single one of us tribal citizens that maintain our language were used as code talkers in those wars. I also have to admit, out of my grandfathers, one of my grandfathers was a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force, and he flew a P-47, 96 missions in World War II. And I sing this song in honor of him as well. So this is the Lakota American flag song. I'll sing it to you in Lakota first, and then I'll explain to you what I'm saying in English, and then you can get the feeling of the camaraderie as those soldiers were coming home during that time period. So the warrior who composed the song, the lyrics of the song, just talk about a grandfather that lives to the east. This grandfather has a pole that stands up tall. On that pole, there's a flag that waves. Standing underneath this flag will bring strength and unification to the people, to the Oyate. So the last lyrics I sang in Lakota, I said, Le chamu alo. I will stand underneath this flag and bring strength and unification to my people. And that is the Lakota American flag song. And as I raised this American flag this morning, I also have to acknowledge about the tribal citizen who raised that American flag in World War II in those Pacific Islands. His name was Ira Hayes. As I raise this American flag, I also have to acknowledge how many of us like American football. All right? How many know about a man named Jim Thorpe? There would not be the American football if it wasn't for a man named Jim Thorpe, who was almost a full-blooded Kazakh Indian, who also won every event in the decathlon in the 1920 Olympics. The King of Sweden called him the greatest athlete in the world, only for him to return home and his own country take his gold medals away from him because he played semi-pro baseball. And how many professionals are in the Olympics to this day? I also raise this flag in acknowledgement of a man that I know personally and got to sit with him a few times, who was raised right here in Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, who won the 300K in 1964, even after his own teammates stole his running shoes from him. His name is Billy Mills. And I raise this flag still to this day because they were fighting and running for this flag, as we still do to this day, right? So as a teacher, I encourage all of us, and I'm still a student too because I'm still learning every day, right? And as us human beings, as teachers and students, I encourage all of us to be seekers of truth. Because if we find the truth will set us what? Free. What's the number one theme in this country? Freedom. All right, that's right. And it's such just a relaxing, like all the weight off your shoulders when you find something, right? And you feel free, right? We all can feel it. So the next song I'd like to sing for you guys was composed in 1876. 1876 was a very pivotal time in this area. That goes with kind of the timelines and the two groups that I have behind me. If you see right here, this is a picture of what we call Itancha Shakpe, or Wakia Paha, which is the six grandfathers, or the Thunder Mountain, and what you know today as Mount Rushmore. and you have a delegation of Ogalalas, and then you have a chief from the Cheyenne and a chief from the Hunkpapa, the Lakotas, to represent a time period there. In 1876, there was a war that was fought. Okay, I don't bring this up for old grievances or for bragging rights, but I'm talking about the Battle of Little Bighorn. Why? Because I want to sing you guys a song that was composed in that camp at that time. As I teach you guys that the word Sioux is a derogatory term that means snakes and enemies, and Lakota means friends and allies. As you guys can understand, those two titles change things like that, right? So can we understand from the language in the song that was happening in the time period. Because many history books and even movies were made about that battle. And they will say that there was thousands and thousands of warriors that attacked the 7th Cavalry on that day. But I will tell you that that's physically impossible for thousands and thousands of warriors to even be present. Why? Because you have a delegation who signed a treaty 8 years prior to 1876 called the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty. Within that Fort Laramie Treaty established 2 agencies specifically. Established Red Cloud Agency and Spotted Tail Agencies, which is modern times Pine Ridge Reservation and Rosebud Reservation. So as you can see that thousands of people were already on agency land. The group that was made up in the greasy grass in that time period were about 3,500 people. Within those people were Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota, but also Cheyenne and Arapaho. And within those 3,500, we got to consider that there was women and children. And within those women and children, there were about 1,300 warriors that were composed of both male and female. And the song I'm going to sing for you is a song from that time period. The rhythm patterns from that time period, the lyrics and the language are from that time period, and along with the melody. One thing you will not hear me do is a rhythm pattern like this. Why? Because that's Hollywood, right? So, and then after I sing this song for you, in the light of all things, and as in an honor for all teachers that are out there that can understand, I'd like to acknowledge and bring a little bit of light to Chief Sitting Bull, because he was present at that camp at that time, and I'll tell you what he was doing. So here is a taunting song from 1876. First of all, the rhythm pattern, as you heard, was a very fast rhythm. Because the composer of the song wants the listeners to know that the adrenaline's running high. Everybody's heartbeat's running really high, right? The second thing you heard this downbeat. In modern times, we call that the honor beat. But really, in this time period is when that downbeat became present into our songs. And what that downbeat is a special effects to let the listeners know that what it might feel like when the cannon and the guns were going off during that time. Now to the simplicity of the lyrics. As the warriors are putting on their armor and they're putting on their camouflage, and the leaders are putting on their wapesha, their war bonnets, and they're running to the front line to protect the people. They look so brave, the children start following them. That's all I sang in that song. Is that the warriors, as they're getting ready to go to the front line, and the leaders, as they're putting on their wapesha, they look so brave going to the front line. The children start following them to the front line. So if you were a scout for the cavalry on that day, and you were looking down the ridge, and the first group of human beings you see were all warriors coming up the hill, and behind those warriors were a bunch of little heads, you might think thousands and thousands of warriors are coming up after you, but the truth was that those were children that were chasing after those warriors. Now, to talk about Tatanka Iotonke, Sitting Bull, what Sitting Bull was doing at that time. Well, to know Sitting Bull is a very great example of a great leader, and a great leader knows the most important thing is for the next generation. So Sitting Bull was running around there scatteredly trying to grab these children and take them to Okopeshnia. Okopeshnia is safety. And he knew that he needed to make sure that they were safe first before anything else. And to note that as we learn about Lakota culture and we learn the language, we knew that you guys have learned this morning that Lakota means friends and allies. Here's another word in my language. It's a word for children. The word for children in Lakota language is Wakanyaja. Wakan means sacred, Yaja means gift. And all children are sacred gifts. And to know that Sitting Bull was a perfect example to express these thoughts and philosophies as he went around presenting to people. And he did presentations as I'm giving a presentation today. And no, Sitting Bull's seen many losses in his life. He experienced many battles. Many of our human beings experience these traumas today and have a hard time recovering from those things. But as you could see, he maintained his humility and maintained his presence. Because he's a true leader that had Wachante Oknake, Wo yu oniha, wachi tonka, woksape. That is generosity, fortitude, respect, wisdom. And when he was standing next to Buffalo Bill Cody presenting in his heart, I know he was feeling forgiveness. One of the last things that Sitting Bull said to a group of people before he died, he said, let's put our minds together and see what kind of world we can make for our children. He didn't say, let's put our Lakota minds together. He said, let's put all of our minds together and see what kind of world we can make for our children. So within that, I'd like to share with you guys a Lakota saying. It's not only a saying, but it's a philosophy and it's a protocol. In this protocol, we say this saying before we enter our nipi, and at the end of our wochekya, our prayer, as we say Amen. We've been saying this saying for thousands and thousands of years, and we say this from the bottom of our heart. And as I teach it to you guys this morning, I feel that you will know that's already been written on the bottom of your heart. You just have to read it. Can you guys all say Mitakuya?
Mitakuye.
Oyasi.
Oyasin.
Mitakuya.
Mitakuye.
Oyasi.
Oyasin.
And 3 times leads to retainment. I'm a certified teacher, so I do know it works. So, Mitakuya.
Mitakuye.
Oyasi.
Oyasi.
What Mitakuye Oyasi translates into English is, no matter what color skin tone you have, hair color or eye color, we are all related. So we don't judge each other by what we look like or where we come from, but we judge each other by character. And all life is sacred and precious. So wo pinatanke chichapalo, lampetukile lila iushki uhapo, Mitakuye Oyasi. Thank you guys for coming up this morning. And before you guys depart, I'd like to sing one more song for you to give you a little reference, some more time period. That before this was Mount Rushmore, this was Itancha Shakpe, which is the 6 grandfathers, also referred to as the Wakia, the Thunder Mountain. And this was one of the last places that our relatives would take their journey before they went to the spirit world. So the song I'm going to sing for you is a prayer song that I offer to you guys. In this prayer song, it just acknowledges that in Lakota way of life, that it is a culture and spirituality that have been interweaved with each other since the beginning. And in our culture and spirituality, we acknowledge that there's one creator, and that creator gives us all of these gifts of experiences. And we thank the creator with all of these experiences that we get to have. Every drink of water, every breath that we enjoy. And so I offer you this prayer song. In the prayer song, it just simply states, no matter where you're at on Unchimaka on Mother Earth, whether you're with your friends or your relatives, or you're all alone, just know you're never alone. Because Wakan Tonka, the great mystery, is always with us. Tonka Shela Oma Kiayo, Oma Kiayo, Maka Hijalo, Oma Kiayo, Maka Hijalo, Tonka Shela Oma Kiayo, Oma Kiayo, Maka Hijalo, Oma Kiayo, Okay, we'll be like talking to each other. Thank you guys for coming up today.
Thank you. The most amazing thing I've ever seen.
That was great. Celeste loved it too.
She fell asleep. She said, I went to sleep. Guys, we're getting closer.
We'll see how long Daddy can make it.
It's very steep. Woo.